Weirding Way Media.
Night, Mr. Walters.
You see that guy over there? Now, he's an actor. The guy on the phone, he's a prize fighter. Me, I'm a cab driver. I'm the only cab driver in this place.
Good evening and welcome to Night, Mr. Walters, a taxi podcast. I'm HP, your co-host, and with me, as always, is my co-host, Father Malone. Father Malone, how are you this evening?
I'm good. I'm the one wearing the Plymouth. Fat jokes. Fat jokes. Get ready for some fat jokes, everybody. And it's perfectly acceptable because she's no longer fat. Anyway.
We have a lot to dig into with this episode. We are talking about Taxi Season 2, Episode 7, The Lighter Side of Angela Matusa. This episode was written by Earl Pomerantz, and it was directed, of course, by the resident director, James Burrows. A reminder, we're covering these episodes in broadcast order and not in order of filming. So we open with this episode. We're in the garage as Alex is getting hounded by Tony as they walk into the garage. Tony is wearing a Yankees cap on his head, but it's perched precariously on the back of his head. It almost looks like it's a little too small for his head. Did you notice this, Father Malone, as he's walking in?
It reminded me of the Sundays you used to be able to get at like Friendlies or whatever. That little Major League Baseball bucket that with a sundae in it.
Yeah, you can still get that at Fenway Park.
What would the flavor be? I think it'd be a lot of salt. It'd be a salty treat if pushed.
This episode is kind of off to a shaky start as far as I'm concerned.
Hey, B-plot. You want one? Here it is. I've been noticing HB over the past few episodes. That's a fucking pattern that I'm kind of tired of, where the opening scene will be two characters talking, just setting up the B plot, then the A plot begins.
I don't know that it's ever a harbinger of good things for the episode. It certainly isn't a good tiding for this episode, as we'll see as we get into this a little bit. The reason he's wearing the baseball hat is because Tony is trying to convince Alex to play on the night shift softball team. Apparently the garage has multiple softball teams, the day shift and the night shift. It's a little far-fetched, don't you think?
No. Are you kidding me? There's so many cab companies in New York City and all of them have softball teams. We are talking about softball, right? Not baseball.
Yeah, but this is not like Sunshine Cab versus DC Cab. This is Sunshine Cab day shift versus Sunshine Cab night shift. That seems odd to me.
Oh, yeah. You know what? You're right. Except you're not. Because, of course, day shift would want to fight night shift for the supremacy of Sunshine Cab. I know I would. Have you noticed all the B-roll of Sunshine Cab, that the sunshine in it is the golden hour, like the sunset?
It's like honey sunlight coming over the cab company. It's obviously dusk leading into the night shift, which is when these guys are driving their cabs. But it looks gorgeous. I mean, after so much snow and coldness of season 1, we've moved into the sort of summertime of Sunshine Cab, it seems.
And they keep displaying that moment right before day shift becomes night shift, thus sort of reinforcing the battle between good and evil that is day shift and night shift here. They're going to play softball.
Well, you make a lot of sense. I guess I'll go with it. As Tony is haranguing Alex is complaining that the day shift team has some great players and they're going to kill the night shift. I can't imagine who these drivers are, who they've,
You've seen them.
The day shift drivers. When have we seen the day shift drivers?
They're still hanging around at shift change. Some of our favorites are day shift.
Yeah, but none of those.
Jack Appleman is a day shift guy.
Okay, aside from him and maybe Leggy Blonde, I don't think any of them
pantsuit. She is a day shift guy.
Yeah, but they don't look like world beaters.
Captain Marvel is a day shift guy.
No, that's wrong, and we'll see that in this episode.
No,
you're actually wrong about that.
No,
and I'll prove it. I will prove it to you.
Okay, look, Rieger doesn't want to play in the fucking ball game. Okay, move on. Let's get to the goddamn plot here already.
I've proven I can prove you wrong, but now all of a sudden you want to move off of this. But let's go.
No, I do want to move on. Who cares? It's a fucking baseball game. It's the worst. You know what? It ends up being the funniest part of the entire episode, but it's a little laborious. The endless setup of Tony with a clipboard following people around. Hey, I'm going to put you down for this and that. And I'm going to put your grandparents down for left field and right field. Whee! Okay, we get it.
It's very laborious, but for you to say that it's the funniest part of this episode is a very low bar to get over, because
Oh, I didn't say the rest of it is any good at all.
oof, yeah. Tony is pouting like a child as Alex is telling him, I can't do it. I'm not going to do it. But he eventually, through this pouting, he wears Alex down to the point where Alex says he might, with capital letters, might drop by on Saturday, which of course Tony, in his zeal, says, okay, I'll write you down. I think he said he's going to be right field or something. So he takes that as a definite. Meanwhile, Louis mentions to Alex that he has a message that came in to him. As is the custom, Alex has to pay him $1. There's some additional business, which I'm not going to go into, where Louis finagles more money from Alex.
I have a question.
Yeah, go for it.
How many folded dollar bills does Alex Rieger have in his shirt pocket?
He has a lot, but those are tips. I'm not surprised.
Is that what that is? Is that okay? Thank you. I was just checking.
Yeah, no, you're right. He does, because Louis gives him a message. It's the wrong message, so he has to give him another $1 to get the right message, and then But you're right. He keeps flipping out these folded dollars. But I assume that's just his tip money.
Well, yeah, either that or he's got a Felix the Cat like magic bag of a pocket there. It just keeps pulling more and more stuff out. Super old reference there.
That is very old. Or maybe Alex is fond of going to strip clubs when his shift is over. Maybe that's why he has so many dollar bills. Who knows?
Or maybe those are his tips from his time at the strip club. Rieger is a complicated man.
Rieger's very virile. I wouldn't put it past him. He could do it. Alex reads the message and announces to Elaine and Tony that it's from Angela Matusa, our friend Angela Matusa. We know her from season 1. She's, of course, the namesake for one of the greatest theme songs in television history, the theme to Taxi.
So wonderfully in this episode. It was so nice to hear it actually played instead of the sort of crazy interstitials that they'll throw in from time to time. Hearing it played straight like the episode was supposed to have initially, like the initial episode, it's pretty great.
You're right. They did do a good job of that. But so we know who this is, and I guess somewhat realistically,
in case the audience doesn't, maybe Rieger should hip us to who she was. You remember? Is this that fat?
He says this to Elaine and to Tony, who have no idea who he's talking about. And only when he mentions that she's fat does it jog their memory, which is the first clue that this is going to be a big string of fat jokes in this episode, which is absolutely, spoiler alert, that's what we get. Once Louis hears about Angela, he starts making a bunch of fat jokes. He's writing them down, getting prepared for her inevitable visit to the garage. Tony's recollection of her was that she was, quote, you'll like this, Father Malone, that she was, quote, big and mean, which makes her sound like a Bengal tiger or something.
You know what? Tony Banta has succinctly summed up the character of Angela Matusa. She was big and she was mean. What else do you need to know? Now's your chance to run.
See, this is where I cut in that little soundbite I made of you as the devil speaking as Angela Matusa.
Enjoy your salad. No, I hate salad and I hate you. Well, did you catch the Mets game? The Mets are death and you'll be dead. Now's your chance to run, Alex. Now's your chance to run.
So you're right. She is the devil, and she was, for lack of a more sensitive term, she was big and she was mean. So
HP,
Alex,
are we about to be treated to the first flashback to a previous episode in Taxi history?
it's so bad. It is so bad. Alex sits down.
You know why they're doing it, of course.
Oh, of course, because they need to set up the fact that
before and after.
Yeah. So the audience can have that woo moment as the new Angela walks in and they can be impressed by her weight loss. So he sits down, Alex, and it just seems so corny to me. He sits down, he says, at first she was mean, and unfortunately Then, as you said, we go down flashback territory where Alex
We
recounts.
stroll down flashback lane
We
with
do.
Angela Matusa. What could be better?
So as he's recounting their first date, they did everything but like the like they cut to the footage from season 1 where we see their first disastrous date at Mario's. And as you said, this was clearly a gambit to give the audience the wow moment when the new Angela walks in. They now have that image of her as an overweight, angry person to balance the sort of light, happy Angela we're going to see in a moment. So we cut back to the garage after this flashback. Alex finishes his tale by saying that they did become friends, he and Angela. But after about 6 months, she stopped answering his calls and she basically disappeared from his life. Just as Alex is admonishing the cabbies not to mention her weight, the radiant Angela walks in to hearty audience applause. And there she is. There's Angela. And to her credit, she looks fabulous, doesn't she?
Oh yeah. Look, she looked fine before. The problem was not her weight. The problem was that she was just a fucking nightmare. Just growling and mean.
She was
It was
very mean.
aggressive, man. It was aggressive. And we get it. She's fucking blah, blah, blah. We don't have to recount that fucking episode, but at the same time, it was like, yeah, we get it. She's mean because she doesn't want to be hurt. Oh, yeah, all right. That's everybody in the fucking world. It's a wonderful lesson. Okay, but now this is new Angela.
And she looks great. She's beaming. She's smiling. She gets the audience applause that she deserves. Now, what's interesting is in the Taxi fan guide, which I talk about virtually every episode, Jim Brooks says that this episode came about after, quote, we heard that the actress had lost weight. We wrote specifically to that fact. So here's the thing, Father Malone. I think what we're going to see is that this was really an idea in search of a story. I think they started with this notion clearly because he's quoted here as saying that they wrote this because they heard that the actress had lost a lot of weight. So they took that central notion that this actress, Suzanne Kent, I believe her name is, lost all this weight. They tried writing an episode around her. And in my mind, it was a recipe for a not very good episode because they're searching for a way to justify her weight loss and create a story around it. But I don't know about you, but I think it's not the strongest tale to write around. What do you think?
I think that I liked this episode a lot more than the previous one.
But again, that's not a very high threshold to exceed. You hated the last,
absolutely hated it. Yes. This one I didn't hate. So therefore it's automatically better, but I can't disagree with you. Like you said, they heard she had lost weight. So they're like, let's write another episode about her. But really they just kind of rewrote the first episode. Just sort of in reverse, like they stripped her bare. What we got here is what we should have gotten in the very first episode, where we were told that everyone loved Angela. Like anytime they called and got her on the answering service, man, they ended up talking to her for hours. She was sweet and she had all this good advice and blah, blah, blah. She was like the auditory version of Rhea Perlman's character. So if they had done this then I probably would have enjoyed the Angela episode, because what we're getting here is that person, the sweet person who's vulnerable. And I think it would have been more effective because she hadn't lost weight then. You know what I mean? Like the story they were telling was they found the actress rather than the other way around, because I don't think they understand what this is here. Effectively, they end up equating food to like heroin. Basically, like she's, it's treated like an AA thing.
You're absolutely right, because if we flash back ourselves to that first season episode, they could have told the story of this woman who was overweight that became friends with Alex, but it could have all been preamble to the actual episode, where now what we're going to see is she decides that Alex is the reason why she should lose all this weight, and we go from there, not to get ahead of ourselves. But I think that's a very good point you just made, because that could have been in service of a more interesting story even though I was a bigger defender of this episode, the first season episode, I have to agree with you on this. I think that's a very good point.
See, the thing is, they wouldn't have written this episode as that. They wouldn't have given us vulnerable Angela, because if that had been sweet, vulnerable Angela falls in love with Rieger and Rieger doesn't want to be with her, then that would put the onus on Rieger, right? So what they did was they made her an angry girl, and then Rieger's the victim. He's just trying to be a nice guy here.
That's true, but in the end, they kind of, in this episode, they put the onus on Rieger, even if it's him putting the onus on it himself.
Right. No. The thing is, it would be like 10 times more effective if she were still a larger girl.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
As far as the sort of moral conundrum of Rieger facing the idea that he doesn't want to be with her because she's fat. See, that is never the question in any of these episodes, really. It's always, this is about her and her addiction to food. This isn't even really about Rieger. This is her about just trying to find somebody, anybody, because we find out, no spoilers, but, that's kind of what happens. Anyway.
You're right that food in this episode is really treated like a drug of the highest order, as we'll talk about momentarily. So at this point, Bobby comes down from the top of the garage down the center stairs, and Alex reintroduces him to Angela, and he's absolutely knocked out by her weight loss, which is great. But I couldn't help being distracted once again by Bobby's sartorial choices. Did you notice?
Holy God, it is full fucking country western Bobby Wheeler this year. Like this fucking straight up cowboy shirt, white and black piping. Like it, oh my God. And he's always wearing jeans, so it just looks like, does he want to ride the range? Like, I don't, we've talked about this. Like, there was sort of a late 70s sort of country revival or like sudden fascination with all things Hickville, like Smokey and the Bandit and Convoy. And
well, when was Urban Cowboy? Was that
like
after
right
this?
around here? It was like 1980.
Yeah. So country was in. Country was in fashion at that time. But the shirt that he's wearing, it reminded me most of the shirt that Marty McFly wears in Back to the Future 3 when he goes back to the Old West. There's nothing authentic about the shirt he's wearing. Like you said, it's like this blue and white with the little sort of piping on either side of the chest, It just looks so stereotypically cheesy country. I couldn't believe it. I have to assume that maybe it's for a role or a commercial. Maybe there's a Gillies opening up.
We keep seeing him in these goddamn shirts. This is not his first country shirt this season. Like we noticed in episode 1 that they're kind of forcing that on him this year. Or maybe it was fucking, maybe Conaway had a country kick going. I don't know. It makes me dislike Bobby Wheeler, if I'm being honest.
Oh, at best, it makes him seem like he's chasing trends. Which he's the nicest looking guy in the whole garage. He has a style all of his own. He doesn't need to chase these trends, but it makes him seem desperate in a way.
He's a hair hopper, Edna.
Again, he's knocked out by the fact that Angela's lost all this weight, and he gives her a kiss and everything. So Angela then sits down at the poker table and is regaling the cabbies with the story about how she lost she joined a weight group about 6 months ago, which tracks with when she lost touch with Alex.
My God, the script is like a diamond. It has so many facets.
It's like clockwork.
Oh, boy.
So this weight loss group changed her life. But unfortunately for us, the audience, somehow this gives her, the fact that she was overweight gives her the license to make a bunch of unfortunate fat jokes the whole time. She talks about how she kept one of her old dresses, and Elaine says, "Why did you keep it?"
Cover.
Oh, and she always, every time she laughs, I'm reminded of Norman Fell as Mr. Roper in Three's Company, because she does this like thing where she wrinkles her nose and kind of ha ha ha. It was very bad.
Funny.
Yeah. It's terrible. So Louis then comes in, and he's still waiting for Angela to come into the garage. He doesn't realize that this is the same woman. So he's trying to tell these collected fat jokes or what have you. But Alex reintroduces her to Louis, and Louis is properly chastened from his fat jokes. That's all well and good. We cut to Mario's, and Alex and Angela are sitting down to eat lunch, and they're in a nice bit of symmetry. They're at the same table they were for that terrible first date from season 1.
Oh boy, we're so lucky we're back here with these two.
As I'm watching this, I couldn't help thinking in the back of my mind, oh man, I wonder what Father Malone is thinking of all this, because devoted listeners.
You have no idea. They're like, we cut to this scene and they're sitting there, and all my life just drained out of me. I thought, really? I got to do this again so quickly? They couldn't even wait 2 or 3 seasons before the return of Angela to this kind of tongue clucking, like highly moralistic, but ultimately pointless episode.
I was one of that episode's staunchest defenders, and even I have to admit that this was already growing tiresome, because I can see that this is really going nowhere. But anyway, we continue. Angela is calculating her calories, and she orders literally the blandest meal you can imagine. It's like chicken with no skin, salad with no dressing, broccoli with nothing.
Yeah, all the while clacking out the fucking calories on the ridiculous calculator that she's brought with her.
Yeah, it kind of reminded me of something that Richard Simmons might offer, like a deal-a-meal calculator, because it's every time she says, chicken, no skin, clack, 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 broccoli, no cheese, clack, 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 clack. She makes the show of ordering this incredibly bland meal. And then Alex orders, and I have to say, Alex orders a mountain of Italian food. Any normal person should order, like, I'll have the spaghetti and meatballs. Done. But he orders like linguine
and clams. Fucking, like, doesn't he get veal marsala as well? And like, what else?
It's a lot. He orders a lot of food, and as he's ordering, Angela is click click clacking into her calorie calculator every dish. So now he's feeling pressured, and after he finishes his order, I think she says something like, "Oh my God," and it freaks him out. But she says, "Look, if you want me to have a good time, just order what you want. I can handle it," which is good. That's fine.
Yeah, just like a someone who's sober at a bar, or at a restaurant. No, it's okay. You can drink in front of me.
Yeah, I can handle it. She's been through
the parallels continue, everybody. Not only drugs, but drinking too. Like, what's your addiction?
So Alex just can't help gushing about how good Angela looks. He just can't stop himself, and he gives her credit for how hard it was, because, and this is out of nowhere, he all of a sudden he says, well, he quit smoking. We've never seen him or heard of him quitting or smoking at all, but now here he is, supposedly an inveterate smoker, and he says,
set up for the punchline.
Yeah, here we come. Here it comes. And he says he knows how hard it can be to kick a habit. Not that obesity is a habit that needs to be kicked, but I get where he's coming from. And Angela admits that she tried and tried. She tried to drop the weight, she couldn't, but because she couldn't find the right motivation. And suddenly she says she realized that the right motivator was there all the time. And what was it?
Alex Reed.
Well, no, at first she says it was men.
Yeah, but it's him. It's him. This is all obfuscation. So they play the pronoun game here, Who are we talking about? Oh, it's me. Yo, well, get to the joke. What's the joke, HP?
So the joke,
it really fucking bothered me, but go ahead.
It's terrible. So she says she realized that there was one man who treated her with the respect that she needed when she didn't feel like she deserved it. And she gently places her hand on Alex's, and without saying, hey, it's you, you're the one that I want to be with, Alex, she just kind of gently smiles, and it was, fine. It's a nice little moment. But then Alex is suddenly flustered beyond the pale. And he conveniently, there's a man behind him smoking a cigarette, which is in itself dates this episode, because when's the last time you saw someone smoking in a restaurant, right?
1995.
Right. So he grabs the cigarette out of this man's mouth, literally out of his mouth, and just starts puffing on it like a chimney. Now, before we get any further, I have to make another side note. As a former smoker, I used to smoke cigarettes. As a former smoker, it drives me nuts when I see someone smoke on TV or in a movie, and they're clearly just puffing away. They're not inhaling the smoke. They're just, smoke stacking it, like puff, 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 puff. And that's what he's doing here.
Oh
You
yeah.
don't see it obviously much nowadays, but it always stuck out to me. Did you ever notice the same thing?
Oh my God, it's one of my hugest pet peeves, and it's all. I think only smokers notice it. You had to have done it for some time to see if they're
Yeah.
actually inhaling or just pulling it into their mouth and then blowing it out. And you don't know until they blow it out, because it should be a steady stream like a breath instead of just a like explosion of smoke, which is what he's doing. But now here's what bothered me, HB.
Yeah.
What would you do as a former smoker if somebody in a restaurant reached out and plucked it out of your mouth? I would knock that motherfucker out.
Yeah.
And
At a
that looked like
minimum,
he could have done it. And here's the thing. This would have been so easy to fix. Here it is. The guy's lighting a cigarette. Rieger says, "Could I get one of those?" The guy says, "Yeah," and hands him his cigarette that's already lit. Here, take that one.
it's very weird because, as you said, the man doesn't, I don't think he reacts in this. He might raise an eyebrow, but he doesn't react in any sudden, or way.
It's as if the waiter came up and took a fork away. Like, that's his reaction. Are you kidding? Come on.
He just kind of shrugs and goes on with his meal. It was very, again, maybe this is a little bit nitpicky, but this is about suspension of disbelief. And I didn't buy this at all. This immediately takes me out of this and drops me into sitcom land, which is where we
man,
are.
that was like a Dick Van Dyke joke, you know?
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much. So we cut to commercial and we cut back, and it's still the same tableau. Alex he still got the cigarette, and he's becoming frantic and flustered. He's doing everything except going humana, 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 humana. All of a sudden, Alex has become so nerved up about this whole thing. Instead of acting like you would think somebody like Alex, who's normally very measured in his responses, he's just basically trembling. He's vibrating with nervousness about this whole thing all of a sudden.
This is a character who we've seen told, "Your father is dying. You need to go to the hospital." And he's crumpled up the note and thrown it away and walked away. But here's Alex. Well, oh my God, a fat girl likes me, but she's not fat anymore, but I still don't like her. What am I going to do?
Yeah, I didn't buy it at all. This is so out of character for Rieger.
This entire episode, everyone is out of character, because Elaine has a moment late in the episode where I went, "What the fuck?" when it happened.
This feels almost like a spec script that somebody wrote. I know it's not, because I know Earl Pomerantz has a history on the show, but this doesn't feel genuine in so many ways.
This is a poor dance with Pomerantz.
Yes. Nice.
Take no chance.
So
keep going.
I don't know. So Alex and Angela are doing this sort of verbal dance back and forth where he's trying to resist her advances, but she keeps trying to get at him a little bit. Are you still on about this Pomerantz dance?
No, not the Pomerantz thing. But now I'm imagining the episode that you're describing, like it's just Alex, like sort of up as a cartoon character, like backing away from her and stuff. Like that would be so much more fun than what we were given here.
It's aggravating to see this, because Judd Hirsch is better than this.
Oh my God,
the
he's so
writers
much
are
better than this. But you know what? I don't know what's happening here. He's just playing a different flavor, I guess, like trying to undercut the seriousness that could easily be read into the episode. Maybe I think he's striving mightily. It's just that he's a victim of the entire episode.
But he is playing it a little bit big and very sort
of vaudeville
exaggerated.
Episode. Vaudeville. Snatch that cigarette out of that guy's mouth. Vaudeville.
It's all very exaggerated, and it doesn't really fit with what I love in his grounded performances normally as Alex Rieger. I think it's kind of out the window. And maybe that part of that is the direction. It's certainly the writing in this case. But I can't impugn James Burrows, because I know he's better than this too. So it's got to be the writing. So anyway, they're going back and forth, and finally Alex admits that he's really not interested in her. finally. And she actually asks Alex to leave. And in a nice touch, I thought this was kind of nice. He does get up. He realizes she needs her space, but he does take out a few bucks and he puts it on the table. I thought that was a nice touch that, even though he's leaving, he hasn't eaten, he's going to pay for the meal. I thought that was somehow, that lended a little bit of verisimilitude to the scene. It's a little thing.
Little, yeah. I agree.
He leaves and Tommy brings over the food. He leaves her.
TJ Castronova, baby.
That's right. Say his name with reverence.
I do. I spoke to someone who worked with him just the other night.
Oh, for midnight viewings? For
midnight viewing, yeah. Armand Mastriani directed a bunch of episodes of Tales from the Dark Side. And in one of the stories he was telling me just about filming an episode, like something went wrong. And he said, then you get a call from TJ. And I was like, oh, let's talk about him. So evidently a fantastic man, just salt of the earth.
But that's remarkable. Now, just as a side note, I'm glad that you brought this up because we haven't really talked too much about the character Tommy or TJ Castronova. But the fact is, in this show, he's just a little bit player, but he's there. He's a reliable presence. But I think it's so cool that he had this sort of second act to his career where he became this big producer of these anthology television shows and everything. I think that's remarkable.
And movies and stuff, and continued acting all along. It's pretty remarkable, actually. I'm going to be doing much more of a deep dive into Mr. Castronova in the future, so I'll share it here when I can.
Let that be a lesson, everybody. Go listen to Midnight Viewing. You won't be disappointed. If you want to hear more about TJ Castronova or great anthology in general, don't wait for my plugs at the end. I'm telling you, go check it out. So
thank you. I won't plug at the end now. Thanks for that.
No, you can plug away. Tommy brings over the food, and one side of the table is all this health food garbage, and the other side is Alex's mountain of Italian food, like I described.
Oh, this
before.
I liked.
This was a nice touch of what I consider like sort of patented Taxi poignancy. So he leaves all this food, and just very sadly, very quietly, Angela starts spinning the table until that mountain of Italian food is in front of her instead of in front of where Alex was sitting. And she starts to eat, and that's the end of the scene. And it's a very sad thing to see. You could probably agree that it's actually a nice bittersweet touch to the scene.
I loved the spinning of the table. That's what I really liked. The sad part is that she was eating the food and not me.
Craving the pasta?
Oh my God, I'm always craving pasta, and the thought of New York pasta and like in vast amounts was very appealing. So I didn't feel anything for Angela because I was already checked out by this time.
But remember, this is Mario's. They're not known for their good food, so that may not have been so good as you remember. But anyhow,
I don't care what those cabbies say. They go eat there every goddamn day. That's just a joke they're telling. They're being mean. They're playing the dozens.
I'm not going to get into that. So so as she's eating this, what I also liked is as she's eating this awful, bad for her meal, we get the nice soulful sax playing on the soundtrack, this mournful kind of Bob James bit as we cut to commercial. Very nice. Probably the nicest moment in the whole episode, if I'm being honest. So we cut back to the garage. Tony, still in his stupid Yankees cap that's too small for his head, is now trying to inveigle Elaine to join this softball team that's going to play on Saturday. And when she informs Tony that her grandparents are coming into town from Buffalo on Saturday, Tony crows, "Oh, there's my outfield." He says, like, "I'll put grandma in right field and grandpa in left field." Is this what you were going to say about Elaine, or is that later?
No, this is not. This is in character. She doesn't want to play softball. She wants to see her parents. What the fuck? Or her grandparents? No, her kids' grandparents, right? Not her grandparents.
I thought she said her grandparents.
That's weird.
It is very weird. The whole...
How old are her grandparents?
Well, we're in the realm of total exaggeration. Like, no one in their right mind would be harassing people to the degree that Tony is, nor would they volunteer somebody that their grandparents are going to be playing softball against their wishes on Saturday. It just doesn't.
Okay,
Anyone,
I kind of like it now.
but anyone in the right mind would say, you know what, Tony, go fuck yourself. Stop bothering me, right?
I think that's just you.
I mean, maybe it's my history with Tony Banta. I don't know, but I can't help thinking like, just stop it. We get it. And we know that this team is going to be terrible and they're going to get killed, and it's going nowhere. It's terrible. But anyway, at that point, a portly fellow comes into the
Portly
garage.
fellow.
He's overweight. He's another overweight gentleman coming in.
Yes.
He says he's looking for Alex Rieger. Louis gets all excited because now he gets to use all of his fat jokes. So he's rummaging through his cage looking for the fat jokes. And finally,
speaking of fat jokes and Louis, there's an episode later in the series where Louis describes how he had to go to the children's section to buy clothes, and it always made him feel miserable because the one that would fit him was called Husky.
Husky. Yeah.
So that's what came into my head when you said a portly gentleman.
Yeah, well, it is interesting. I mean, I guess you can't, we had no way of knowing that was going to come subsequent to this episode, but you would think somebody like Louis, who maybe had some of that bullying in his youth, would be a little more sensitive towards somebody who's overweight, but he's not. He tells fat jokes.
Oh
And
no,
he's unrepentant.
he's terrible across the board. That's Louis De Palma. Like I expect nothing less from him.
Oh, that's true. That is true. He's not. There's no real empathy there. So
No,
I guess
it
that's
wasn't him calling that guy portly. That was you.
No, I'm being sensitive. But anyway, Alex comes in and the guy introduces himself as Wayne Hubbard. Now, this gentleman is played by another kind of familiar face actor
Yeah,
named.
who is this dude?
So this dude, as you put it, is a guy named Phil Rubenstein. He's never really been. I think he passed away in 1992 or 95. He's no longer with us. He had very, very small parts in everything from The Rose. He was in Barney Miller. He was in Airwolf. He was even in Star Trek IV and Tango and Cash. He's just been in all. He's kind of just always popped up and I've recognized him. But here's the thing. For some odd reason, I remember him best from a movie that I caught as a child on late night cable called Hooch. Do you have any memory of this movie, Hooch?
No.
I will tell you about it. So this movie,
I'm laughing. Yeah, okay, go ahead.
So this movie starred Gil Gerard, Buck Rogers.
Oh my God.
He played
I once saw him in a Ruby's Diner in Marina Del Rey with a much younger lady. It was very unusual.
Really? Was he looking good though? Did he still have it?
Yeah, he looked great, actually.
I mean, he was a handsome guy.
But he was in a jogging suit, and that really disturbed me. Because he was at eat, you know what I mean? And it was, yeah, it's a Ruby's Diner, so it's kind of low class, but at the same time, it's like it's a night out. Like you're wearing a jogging suit, man. You were in the 25th century. Like you went through Chicago when it was all in ruins. Remember that with all those scary mutants? Oh man.
So
like he survived that to wear a jogging suit on a date? No.
So this movie was called Hooch, and this was an older movie. Actually, Danny Aiello, this might have been his first role. Danny Aiello was in this movie too.
Oh, thus the world was graced with the presence of Danny Aiello.
So this movie starred Gil Gerard as a smooth-talking moonshine runner who drove the sweet El Camino. And I think at that point, sort of these hick flicks and movies about moonshine runners were becoming popular in Hollywood. I think not that Smokey and the Bandit is about that, but I think there was a lot of movies that took place in the Deep South that had this as part of the sort of backdrop or whatever. But as a child, yeah, White Lightning, all of these movies, and I can't. As a child,
what was the Richard Pryor one? Was that Greased Lightning?
I think that was White. Wasn't that White Lightning, or was that Greased Lightning?
Greased Lightning is Richard Pryor.
Yes, it was. You're absolutely right. So as a child, I mean, I must have been 8 or 9. I watched this probably at midnight on cable because at that time you didn't have 8 million showings of Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. They would show at late at night. They would show weird drive-in type movies that you wouldn't catch anywhere else. And this was one of those movies. And I remember thinking to myself, why is Buck Rogers driving an El Camino and selling moonshine in the Deep South? That disconnect in my mind stuck with me. Anyway, Phil Rubenstein was also in this movie, and that's where I remembered him from, because I saw this and I said, well, that's that guy from that Hick movie starring Gil Gerard. That's weird. So he's been in a million things. But anyway, Wayne comes in, he's talking to Alex, and he confides to Alex that he and Angela are both members of that weight loss group that meant so much to Angela. And he's concerned because she's not attending the next meeting, which is apparently a very big deal because she hasn't missed one in 6 months. But I was distracted by the fact that all the while that this conversation has been going on, the show is making this joke that every cabbie has a piece of food. Like, I think Tony's eating a candy bar, and as he's eating it, this guy Wayne is getting distracted by the fact that he's eating a candy bar, and he can't hold a conversation with Alex because he's too just. If this were a cartoon, he would be following like the smell lines off of the pie on the windowsill, floating like a bird.
Okay, listen, I'm going to vent my spleen a little bit. HP, I'm now a thin human being, but for the majority of my life, I was a very overweight human being. And so any fat humor always stung quite a bit. No more than and this was prevalent like for the for time immemorial, honestly, up until the 80s, maybe early 90s, where you could portray a fat person as so obsessed with food that they can't fucking think if there's food in the vicinity. They're just like so laser focused. Like, people don't fucking portray heroin addicts and fucking like psychopaths in this way. And so here it is again from the fucking writers of Taxi. Are you fucking kidding me? This isn't fucking Meatballs, you know?
It was really offensive. Do you remember that movie Fatso with Dom DeLuise?
Yes, I do.
That's cut from the same cloth, because that movie, he has to put a lock on his refrigerator because he's so out of control and he can't control himself overeating. This time period was so unkind to people who had, issues with their weight. And it's hard.
The thing is, it kind of remains to this day. It's now seen more as punching down, but it does seem like you can get away with you just can't control yourself. Like, that's your problem. Like, I always marveled at thin people who had a fucking metabolism of a fucking hummingbird, who didn't need to eat ever, like saying like, what is your problem, fat person? Like, just fucking put the food down. As if we don't have all emotional problems or some other fucking thing going on in our lives. But it's this sort of presentation on a national television show from a very well respected show that we clearly love is just reinforcing that nonsense. Like, it's encouraging that sort of thought and approach to people who are overweight. You know what? And some people are overweight and just like, I know I'm fat. Fuck you all. And I certainly was that way. So
I agree. It was really deflating to see this happen. Now, I've seen this episode more than a few times over the years, but as we've talked about with previous episodes, I'm seeing them now and being more critical in watching them. I'm noticing these things that maybe weren't as evident the first few times I saw them. So that, I think, maybe above all else, I mean, the biggest sin of this episode is it's not very funny, but it is really disheartening to see a show that I think of as one of the more classy sitcoms in sitcom history punch down in this way. And it was this scene with Wayne and the fact that he's so mindlessly in thrall to anyone. Like, they're eating chips and he trails off from his conversation to, oh, those barbecue. Come on now. I mean,
come on now, Wayne. We got to focus up here.
It's awful.
I'm surprised that Rieger didn't take out a piece of gum or something and wave it around to lead him out of the garage so they can go find Angela.
Yeah, it was really, like I said, it was disheartening to see this. During this conversation, Wayne admits to Alex that he's crazy about Angela. He hasn't told her how he feels. There's something holding him back. And You can tell Alex is picking up on this signal and maybe even deep down thinking of a way that he can get out of this situation with Angela, because this guy so clearly actually wants to be with her.
There's an emergency here. She might be eating. HP might be eating. Call the fucking police already. Roll out the National Guard. What's going on here? We got to go.
Wayne has said that when he talked to her on the phone, to your point, he says he could hear cutlery in the background, and that sets them off to think, oh my God, as you said, she's in the city somewhere. She's in a restaurant somewhere in New York eating. Let's go get her.
They're gonna go find her at a restaurant in New York City. Really? You take Manhattan.
The city with maybe one of the densest populations of restaurants in all of the United States, and they're going to find her. She could be anywhere, literally anywhere in the city. The city's huge.
Find a needle and a stack of needles.
But somehow they're going to try to make a go of this. Now we cut. Actually, this part, I already said I like the moment with Angela and the food table spinning, but this actually might have been my real favorite thing. We cut to this peppy nighttime B-roll of cabs driving down the New York streets. It's paced because you know that they're running against the clock. They got to find Angela, so it's very peppy.
It's like a Mission Impossible episode all of a sudden. Like dun dun. They could have put the Mission Impossible theme on and it would have played great. And I'm going to do that.
Yeah, maybe. So we see some great sort of restaurants in New York. This B-roll. We see one called Papaya, which advertises that it's, quote, nature's own revitalizer. And that is right next door to a place called Taco Rico, which looks good as well.
That's Gray's Papaya, right?
I didn't see Gray. I saw it just said Papaya. Maybe it was Gray's Papaya, and Gray's was very small lettering, but it looked very prominent. There's even a place called Tickers that has very ornate lettering, but I couldn't make out any info on what this inviting establishment had to offer. There was nothing online about it.
That's for people with pacemakers.
And we even have a rare B-roll piece that shows Judd Hirsch actually driving a cab, and it's slightly illuminated from the inside so that you can, because they want to make damn sure that you see Judd Hirsch in the driver's seat. I love when they do stuff like that.
They got a light bar on his lap while he's driving that car, and good for us because it's great.
It's great.
And I want more of it. They should have taken 2 days of just driving around with Judd Hirsch and have fucking total footage of him doing that.
Well, we do get a little bit more, because we have a few more shots of him driving frantically. And then we have this awesome shot of him running up the street.
It's fantastic.
And he's going to the diner that he's tracked Angela down at. And we cut
before we get to the diner, HP.
Yeah.
We skipped the moment that made me go, who wrote Elaine Nardo in this episode? What is Earl Pomerantz on this week? Because Rieger is going out to find Angela at the behest of this fellow Overeaters Anonymous person that thinks she's in actual danger. And
Nardo, I know. Yeah, right. Yeah.
Nardo says, hey, Alex, some people just can't be helped. Wow. What? Elaine Nardo, the mother of Sunshine Cab, the level-headed one, the fair and see it from their point of view person. You know what? Some people just can't be helped. Fuck her. Let her overeat.
Which you could see actually that making sense coming out of Alex, because he has often advocated for staying out of people's business, right? You could have transposed him saying those lines, and it would have made a million times more sense than everything he's done up to this point.
That's an Alex line.
Yeah.
It ain't Nardo's, man. Threw me for a fucking loop. I went, what?
Elaine is so hell-bent on helping each and every person that she comes into contact with that she was driven to a therapist because she was going crazy. She didn't have enough time in the day to do everything that she could.
Now that you mention that therapy, maybe the therapy is working. And now Elaine's attitude is some people can't be helped. Fuck them. Got a new
Maybe
attitude, Alex. I'm now a new Elaine. Thanks to you. Thanks for getting me to that therapist because I clearly needed it. And now I love Atlas Shrugged. Have you read it? I think you should read it.
I agree with you. I forgot about that moment, but it is quite a departure from the Elaine that we know and love. So that's very, very
Okay,
well.
let's get to E.T.'s diner.
So we cut inside this diner, and from the inside, I got to say, it really does look like a dump. It's another great set decoration. There's even a neon sign that you can see that's backwards because it's facing out into the street. That it's supposed to say eats, but the A is not working, so it has eats. That's right, it's ET. It's the ET diner, but everything looks dingy and kind of grimy and not very
Everything looks
inviting.
awful except for the actual one bright spot in this episode, Mr. Dick Miller.
Yes, this is everything is coming up Joe Dante once again.
Oh my God. Could anything get better than when something Joe Dante explodes in your direction? Here's Dick Miller, everybody.
Everybody loves Dick Miller.
How
Everybody
can you
loves him.
not? Have you seen Bucket of Blood?
I have not seen Bucket of Blood.
You need to watch Bucket of Blood as soon as we finish this podcast.
Yeah?
It's the Walter Paisley thing.
Am I thinking of that 200 Maniacs? Is that the one I'm thinking of? Maybe it's not the same movie. It's not a Herschel Lewis movie, is it?
No, man, this is a Corbin from the early 60s.
Ah, what's Bucket of Blood about?
Bucket of Blood he's a wannabe poet and sculptor, rather. There's two of them, but and now I'm blanking. But there's one where he's Walter Paisley and he's a sculptor, but he basically just starts killing people and paper macheing over them. Like he starts with a cat and stuff, and he gets really famous. And there's all this like beat poetry and shit. It's really fucking fun, and he's the star of it. He's great.
Oh, it sounds like an EC comic come to life.
Oh man, it is. It is. It's wonderful.
I mean, everyone listening to this podcast hopefully is familiar with the work of Dick Miller. Obviously, he's best known for such films as he was in Gremlins, he was in The Howling.
He's in every Joe Dante movie.
That's right, and he's in the Terminator. He's the guy who runs the gun shop. Yeah,
you can't do that.
Yeah, it's like, hey,
just what you see, pal.
Just what you see, pal. Yeah, he's so great in that. He's only in it for a minute, but he's great.
That's a good guy.
So he plays, I guess he would be like the short order cook of this dive that Angela.
He's the owner. He's the owner.
I guess the fact that he takes such umbrage.
Yeah, man.
Probably
everyone fucking is bagging on his shit. He's standing right there, of course.
Yeah. Yeah. He will, again, like we saw with the Elaine Loses for Marbles episode where we had Mary Warrenoff and Robert Picardo. They don't really give him anything to do. He's just there he has a few good reactions, but that's it.
Yeah, but I was smiling through the whole scene, which was hard to do, HP. Not because anything transpiring was making me sad. It was enraging me. And then I would see Dick Miller and go, oh, hey, Dick Miller.
So let's get through this. So Alex comes in. Angela and Alex start hashing things out. Alex says that he feels responsible for her, for lack of a better term, falling off the wagon, but she insists that she's going to wallow in her misery. And then she regales him. This is sort of Louis style. This harkens back to Louis's sad tale of going to prom and the high chair. Remember that?
Oh my God. It's the fucking same thing, except we don't get to see Bobby dance.
There's no like happy retribution from this. She was going to go to prom, but she didn't go and she had to look through the window and it rained and she fell into some garbage. It's this awful tale of woe, and Alex is overcome with emotion at how sad this tale is. But what I like, actually,
Jed Hirsch is bad here, but go ahead.
No, he is. His reaction is bad. But the one thing I liked about this exchange is he's moved, but he insists to Angela. He says, everybody has a story like that. And she calls him on his bluff. And she says, well, you tell me your story. And he goes, damn, because he has no story like that. She has just called him on his bluff and proven what a phony he is to say that. I love that moment.
That's a great moment. You're right. In the midst of this scene, that's a really good moment because everything else is a fucking jerk off, including the audience punchline. And then I went home and ate a turkey.
That's the button to her awful
That's a
prom
joke.
story.
That's the joke at the end. That's the actual sorrowful thing that she feels she had to dive into a fucking turkey.
I think that if I'm putting myself in the writer's shoes, I think they just said, look, this has been an awful story. We have to do something to bring the audience back from this sorrowful tale.
How will
It
we
just,
do that? How can we redeem ourselves? Please tell me.
let's make a fat joke. That's essentially what they did. And a show full of fat jokes. Not good. At that moment, Dick Miller comes over to bring Angela some pork chops. But Alex, again, this is one of these things of that she's so out of control. Alex has to physically try to keep her from eating these pork chops. And he says to her, he insists to Angela that a lot of people care about her. This guy, Wayne, cares a lot about her.
Oh, Jesus.
And Angela admits that she couldn't have gotten through the last 6 months
He's a
without
sweet
Wayne.
guy. He's a sweet guy. That's sweet.
He's a sweet guy.
Let's sit at dinner. But he's a fatty. Well, I don't want that fatty.
Alex wheedles Angela to admit that she likes Wayne, but she's been resisting kind of becoming close with him. And we can only assume at this point that it's because he's overweight. But she insists it's not his weight that's the issue. And at that point, Wayne comes in. Again, a city full of restaurants. They don't have cell phones. It's not like Alex could have called him and said, hey, I found Angela. She's in this dump that's run by Dick Miller. He finds his way to the restaurant.
They found each other.
Yeah, it's
He
sort
happened to run into them.
In all of the diners and all of the places, you had to find the one I'm in. So he says he's been at every restaurant in the city looking for her. And this is the first one he didn't feel like eating in. And this raises Dick Miller's hackles again. And he gives this
I didn't ask you people to come in here. Great line.
It is. Alex is continuing to try to play matchmaker for the two of them.
Jesus.
And probably partly out of his own zeal to get out of this awkward situation with Angela.
That's
and partly because
100% what it is. There's no part two.
But I think part of him wants to take credit for bringing these two lovebirds together.
Oh, okay. If you make it sort of out for self-interest, then yeah, I agree. There's part to it.
Yeah. I mean,
there was
both.
If the second part was altruism, I was going to fight you on that.
No, not altruism, but he wants to be the one who made this love connection, if you will. They actually, though, they both agree that the attraction is mutual. Angela is still apprehensive, but a suddenly manic Alex insists that they can work through any of their problems. Come on, they're these crazy kids. Just admit you love each other. And Wayne asks her out for coffee. It's kind of sweet. And she says that they can go back to her place and have coffee. Alex is, at this point, he's crowing about this storybook ending and continues to hammer this message that they can work through any issues that they have. It's, let love find the way. And as they start to walk out hand in hand, Angela casually mentions that, by the way, Alex, I wasn't reluctant to date him because he's overweight. I think he's cute. The reason? What's the reason why she didn't want to date this guy?
He's married with children.
He's married with 4 fucking kids.
Huh?
And
this is my favorite part of the episode, but go ahead.
Well, yeah. So, yeah. Is it because of Dick Miller's reaction to this?
No, it's because of the fucking situation that they ended the episode.
Yeah. Dick,
are we?
Yeah. So, Dick Miller hears this and he gets this. Finally, he smiles and he says, "That's cute." And Alex is properly chagrined about this whole thing. And I agree with you, by the way. If anything, there's nothing saving this episode, but I actually really enjoyed the fact that they didn't have their little storybook ending. It's actually what Alex has essentially done is he has enabled a homewrecker to come into this man's life and probably ruin.
No. She's not the homewrecker. He's looking to fuck her. He came to Alex to help him find her. Don't put it all on her. He's the homewrecker. She's slipping in. Are you kidding me? She was just trying to have some pork chops when he came slobbering in there.
That's a fair point. That's a fair.
By the way, had they wanted to treat this episode a little more realistically instead of the fucking vaudeville farce that they gave us. The only satisfying ending would be that there would be no Wayne character, that it would just be Alex feeling bad and going out to save her like he saves everybody. And she goes, Alex, I'm going to eat for a little while, maybe a few days, and then I'm going to get back to my weight that I'm at right now. And I'm going to do that for me, not you. Fuck you. You're not saving anybody. Go drive a cab. That I would have cheered at the end of this episode.
That would have saved the episode right there, because that would have been realistic. That would have been poignant. That would have been sensitive. But this episode is none of those things. I'm going to eat for a few days
and get back to this weight, or maybe I'm not. It doesn't matter to you. So don't make me your problem to solve.
Teach Alex the lesson. He can't just butt into people's lives like this. It's not up to him to be the white knight that saves her. He has proven beyond a shadow of a doubt that he is not the man that she thought he was. So just maybe we're better off not being together at all and just leave me.
No, the answer is she needs a man. Anyone will do. I'm hoping she shows up in the 3rd season as like a sex addict. like that's her new addiction, or like maybe like stamp collecting in season 4, or I don't know, some other bizarre thing. Like Angela's like the Robin Wright character from fucking Forrest Gump. She's just involved in all the weird addictions in the underworld.
I appreciated the fact that yes, it is kind of a cheap punchline, but I did like the fact that Alex bends over backwards to be this, like I said, this white knight trying to save her from herself and bring them together. And he accomplished the exact opposite of that. He made things worse because, who knows what's going to happen once she and Wayne are involved. Wayne is a creep all of a sudden. Really?
Wayne was a creep to begin with. Wayne was just staring at food left and right, and he's looking for Ange. Get out of here. Character shouldn't be in the episode.
So that wraps up the A plot, but now we have a bumper, and here's
B
where
is for B-roll. B is for bumper.
So we cut back to Mario's. Mario's is like the primary set for this whole episode, seemingly.
Thank
we
God.
We cut back to Mario's, and the cabbies file in, looking very dejected, and they're slightly dirty from their softball game. You can tell they're coming from a softball game because they're wearing baseball caps and other things. And for some reason, several of them, including Alex, are walking into the bar still brandishing baseball bats. Who the fuck does that? Why wouldn't you leave that in the car? It makes them look like the Warriors.
Well, yeah, that's what I was thinking. This is the redeeming part of the episode for me. I like that they're holding the baseball bats. I like how fucking broken down they all look. Like they just got their asses handed to them. They've been eating dirt for the past couple of hours. Like I seeing the taxi cast looking that way. It saddened me that there weren't a pair of grandparents and Elaine Nardo also looking bruised and broken.
Yeah, they were conspicuously absent. Now, here's where I prove to you that Captain Marvel was not a day shift cabbie, because one of the people brandishing a bat as they file in is, hey, it's Captain Marvel. But what's even better than that, Father Malone, is he's the only one not wearing anything vaguely athletic. Did you see what he was wearing?
No.
He's wearing a pink button-down long sleeve shirt with jeans, and he's carrying a bat. I loved it. It's so bizarre. So clearly he's on the night shift team because he's walking in with them as they're all disheveled and broken from playing this softball game. Now, here's the thing. I did a little bit more research, and this gentleman that we've been calling Captain Marvel, he bears a very strong resemblance to producer Richard Sakai. So I believe he is Richard Sakai. That would explain why he keeps popping up, does it not?
Absolutely. I hope that's true. Do you need to confirm that? Is it him?
It looks just, a lot of the pictures I'm seeing of Richard Sakai are from the last 10 years. So he's a much older gentleman, but it tracks with what I'm seeing. So I'll try to confirm.
I will get on board the Captain Marvel train 100% if that's Richard Sakai. I'll get on board the spaceship and off to wherever the fuck Captain Marvel is from.
It's got to be Richard Sakai. It's got to be. So, and an additional side note, as Tony sits at the bar, we get a great look at his keep on trucking tattoo that you
Oh
brought up in
boy,
previous
Joey
episodes.
lovingly shot in this scene. We just keep seeing it over and over again.
It's huge in the camera. Like you can, it's very distinct. You can see exactly what it is. The cabbies they order 2 6-packs to go from the bar for some reason. Why wouldn't they just go to a liquor store? Why do they have to go to Mario's? It's weird. They're all complaining about how bad the game went. They order these 6-packs, and then Tommy asks where they're going. Alex announces, "Hey, the break's over. They're going back for the second inning. Vaudeville."
I did the new trailer version of the vaudeville theme.
That's right. You take a modern classic song and slow it down, put a lot of reverb on it. Perfect. So that is the lighter side of Angela Matusa.
That was it, baby.
That is it. We've come to the part of this podcast where we're going to talk about yellow lights.
What does a yellow light mean?
Reminder, we score this from 1 yellow light to 5 yellow lights. 1 is the worst Taxi episode. 5 is the best. Very simple. As is our custom, we're going to start with you, Father Malone. How many yellow lights do you give the lighter side of Angela Matusa?
Well, that's kind of difficult because 1 means nobody should ever watch it. So I can't give it 1. I'm going to give it 2. I think there are some bright spots in this episode. I think it's worth seeing. Definitely for the B-roll section of Rieger running around New York, which is just awesome. There are little bits here and there that I think are really good, including the sight of Dick Miller. But I can't give it any more lights than that. It's so offensive in almost every motherfucking way. Now, see, now I'm talking myself into 1 light. Dick Miller, help me. 2 lights.
I am in full agreement with you here. I gave this 2 yellow lights as well. As I mentioned earlier, this really struck me as an idea in search of a plot. It's interesting to see the idea of a Taxi universe, and we have this person returning from season 1. So that's kind of cool. But
I like continuity, sure. Like, yeah, they should be doing more of that, and they will, obviously.
Yeah, but it's just far too sitcom-y. No Reverend Jim anywhere to be seen, which is a real bummer.
What the fuck, man? He's not even in the credits yet.
No, my assumption would be, I don't have any evidence to back this up, but I have to think maybe he was doing a play or something, and maybe he was unavailable to come back to Taxi. I'm not sure, but he's sorely missed. But nevertheless, as I said, I enjoyed that little twist at the end where Alex is patting himself on the back for being for bringing these lovebirds together, but it's really not a good situation. That and Dick Miller plus Alex, awesome B-roll is good for at least 1 yellow light more, because I can't give it. I mean, we can't go we've gone lower than 1 in the past, but it's not entirely unwatchable. But this would not be one that I would put in my rotation if I'm looking at the best Taxi episodes. So this is 2 yellow lights, flat out. So 2 from myself, 2 from Father Malone. That's going to do it. Father Malone, where can the fine folks find you when you're not clocked into the garage?
Well, if you head over to weirdingwaymedia.com, you can hear my show Midnight Viewing, the horror anthology podcast. It's a lot of shows, actually, but yeah, you can go over there and check that out. If you want to support that show, we'd appreciate it. Go give me some 5 stars somewhere. That's where you can find me.
Absolutely. Midnight Viewing, go check it out, as I said earlier. Please check out Dark Destinations. I say it every week. It's one of my favorites. Great audio drama, wonderful storytelling. It's worth checking out. For myself, you can also find me in the Weirding Way Media Network. You can hear me. I occasionally guest on the Culture Cast with Chris Dashew. I've also done
Midnight Viewing. You've been over there. We're talking Cat's Eye.
I have been over Midnight Viewing, and
there you go. If you weren't lured over to come over and listen to Midnight Viewing, then do so, because HP's on one of it. It's a really good episode.
It's great stuff. I can't say enough about it. Please check out. Did you mention your Patreon, Father Malone?
I didn't, but if you want to go to patreon.com/Father Malone, I won't say no to a bit of encouragement.
Please check it out. I also have a Bandcamp site called hpmusicplace.bandcamp.com. Looking to grow some of the content on there, so stay tuned. But anyway, that's going to do it. As I said, thank you again for listening. Please feel free to subscribe to this podcast, write a review, or rate us. We'd love to hear from you in any way that you see fit. So for myself and for Father Malone, thanks again, and we'll see you next time.
Night, Mr. Walters.